pay-per-view stage.
Yeah, I agree.
And this also is weird because I guess this led to a Colin Delaney heel turn. And
which, who gives a shit? Really, who gives a shit?
Yeah. It was kind of like that during the, remember the TLC match with Moxley when he was Dean Ambrose against AJ and they had like James Ellsworth come in there and turn on him and then he turned heel? It's kind of like that same deal. It's like not a TLC match, it's just a simple whatever match like here, but it's it's just kind of like why,
It's just who cares? It's really the thing with this match.
No, I know. It's just I'm trying to like break it down. I'm like trying to find something out. I'm trying to make something out of it or get something out of it, but. Yeah, all we got out of this was a Colin Delaney heel turn. That's basically the biggest takeaway from this match. And that Mark Henry basically needed Colin Delaney's help to beat Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I have left to say about it. Next, we would have something that is definitely worth talking about, and that's Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. 4th match of the night.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, this was really freaking good. Just the way that they built this, and obviously, like, the match itself isn't great, but the way they built it to where it's just Jericho beating down Shawn was so good.
No, and I even still thought it was a very good match. Like, obviously, it wasn't as great as the match we had done at Judgment Day. It's not as great as some of their other ones, but no, I definitely thought here it was still, like, a pretty good match. Just in terms of story. In terms of storytelling, this made it a very good match. But in the beginning, they were, like, wrestling. They were doing, like, the usual. Doing the usual, like, it was like your typical, it was everything you'd expect, it was pretty good. But then, some or another, Jericho would nail Shawn Michaels with an elbow. Well, I guess this is before the Judas effect.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, so he'd nail him with an elbow. And then, from there, he'd get a cut from there, and he'd get a really bad cut. It would be right above his eye. So then Lance Cade also during this, I forgot to mention, he'd run down while this was while the match was, we're still like, between just Jericho and Michaels where they're going back and forth before like the elbow to the eye and then the cut and everything. So then he'd get involved to deliver a big boot behind the referee's back, and then after that Jericho would just go right after the eye, and then Shawn would say he's okay when the referee would ask him, and then Jericho would just continue to just beat down and go after the cut like above the eye, and then he'd toss him into the ropes. And Shawn would just refuse to quit, and then eventually the referee would have stopped the match at 18 minutes and 18 seconds was the recorded time I had. I just stop it after that point, and yeah, Shawn would just be unable to continue, and from there they'd take it to SummerSlam where Shawn would appear, and he'd say that like he'd think maybe it'd be best that he'd retire at that point, and then he had this segment with Jericho and his wife Rebecca and everything. We're going to talk about that more when we get to that with SummerSlam 2008, but that's where it transitions from here. So we went from like it turned into Jericho was just in between the Shawn Michaels and Batista deal where he was the referee at Backlash, and then Shawn revealed he was faking the injury, so then it was just him and Jericho. They had this great match at Judgment Day, and then Jericho would still be like he'd still be going after Shawn a bit, and he'd be basically questioning his character and everything. And then there was like the stretcher match where Jericho even get involved in that. Where he's like, "Come on, Shawn, you got to do it for these fans." And he's just like, he's allowing Batista to continue on the beatdown. It's just great stuff. Like it's just great stuff. And this is like honestly for me not even like it's obviously the feud of 2008 and like the feud of this time period. I actually think this is like one of the best like feuds like ever.
This feud itself, I think we've talked about it before. It's probably one of the best feuds in our lifetime.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it's one of just the best feuds, like, period, because it's just a bitter hatred and rivalry. It's probably, like, I think a lot of time the reason why 2008 could be kind of underrated for some people and stuff is because a lot of the time it's like there may have not been like a lot. I think sometimes people forget about it because there wasn't like a ton of like memorable moments and stuff compared to other years. Like there's even other years that like weren't as good as 2008. It even had like some like big memorable moments in it. But if there's one thing to remember from this year, this is definitely the Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho program. But I still, it wasn't like, as good as some of their other matches that they had before and some of the matches they're going to have going forward. But I still went ahead and gave it 3.5 just because of storytelling. I think that's just what helped give it that rating for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And honestly, going into the pay-per-view in a lot of ways is probably the match I would have most looked forward to. And probably a lot of other people I would think would have looked most forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next we'd have the match to crown the first ever WWE Divas Champion because we already had the women's title for decades. So SmackDown decided to introduce another women's championship, and this time be the Divas Championship. I mean, I guess it was something because I used to always think like if there was no title on SmackDown for the women wrestlers or the women superstars, divas, whatever you want to call them, I used to think if there wasn't another title on that brand, then what was the point of them having matches?
Yeah, it was just stupid.
So I thought them getting a title was great. It's just unfortunately it's a horrible looking design belt.
Yeah, I think though honestly, whenever I see this belt, and I know it may be weird, there's two people I think of. I think of AJ Lee and I think of Michelle McCool.
I would agree. I could agree with that.
Mainly because I think of Way Cool when I see this.
Yeah.
I mean, their whole run where they split the belt in half, and even though it was stupid, that was good. And then obviously AJ, I think, was the best Divas champion.
Oh, I without a doubt, 100%. I would agree as well. So yeah, well, speaking of Michelle McCool, it would be Michelle McCool versus Natalya.
Yep. Miss Taker going in there. She would win too.
Yeah, it was also.
It was weird to see Natalya look like this.
Yeah, because she didn't even have like the blonde hair. Didn't have like the blonde with the pink in it. Like she was like she had like red hair, so that was like different. And she was also very fresh into her like run there because she had just debuted. I think like a few months prior. So she's just still fresh new on the main roster, and she's still here to this day. Monday Night Raw, 12 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always cool. But yeah, Michelle McCool is actually an underrated women's wrestler of the past. I believe.
She is, especially in the stuff she did with Layla. Even though I didn't like the splitting of the belt, it was actually pretty good in terms of storyline.
Oh yeah, no, Way Cool was a good pairing. Yeah, the only thing I didn't like you says, I don't like when they split.
Great heel faction too.
Yeah, great heel duo. The only thing I didn't like is he says I don't like when they split the women's championship in half. I didn't like when they did that, but outside of that though, no, they were a cool pairing. But Michelle McCool, I actually felt like I went ahead and gave this match like a 2. I mean, it only got 4 minutes and 41 seconds because I actually got the feeling that had this gotten longer, this actually could have been even better because I actually thought this was decent for what the time that they had and everything.
So did I.
Of course, this is like the first ever Divas Championship match to crown the first ever champion. And they, of course, that's the case, and they only give them like not even 5 minutes. But what can we say?
It's the way it was back then.
Yeah. So then after Michelle would win, out would come who came out there? It was Cherry and was it Eve that came out there? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I thought it was Was it Rosa Mendez?
No, it wasn't Rosa Mendez.
Alicia Fox? I don't know. Who cares?
No, because I'm trying to remember, but they'd be out there. They'd be celebrating with her in the ring, and then all of a sudden,
out would come Y2J.
Chris Jericho would return, and that's the other thing. It's like, of course, they had the celebration of the first champion as well. Then he just comes out there and interrupts it. So then Jericho would come out there again, and he'd tell everyone to keep their ticket stubs or other cable bills, and he just tells them to hold on to that because tonight was the last time that Shawn Michaels would he'd compete because he said this was Shawn Michaels' last match. He says that Shawn has a detached retina, so he's finished, he's done, and he won't be seeing him again ever.
It's a good thing he didn't get his eye gouged out.
Yeah, oh, thank God this didn't happen now. There you go. That would have been where they would took this next. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
After that, they would have done an eye for an eye match. Because he took. Oh my God, oh my God. That would have been. That's totally what they would have done. So then after that, we would have the World Heavyweight Championship match. It would be CM Punk versus Batista.
Yeah, and of course, they'd actually be doing okay in the match, but of course, they wanted Punk to retain, but Punk can't beat anyone, of course.
He can't ever look credible as champion.
Yep, so Kane comes out and attacks Dave, and for some reason, that's a double disqualification, whatever they called it.
Yeah, even though he attacked Batista first.
Didn't make any sense. This was just stupid.
Yeah, that's one of the stupidest pay-per-view finishes of the year. Because as I said, they're having a good match. Like, I went ahead and gave it 3 stars. Like, and it was interesting going into it because I'm like, Punk and Batista match, because they never really worked with each other like that much. So like I remember it ending this way, and I remember how disappointing it was, but I didn't remember like the rest of the match, and I was actually happy to see that it was actually a good match. But
So was I.
But once again, it's like you said, it's like, and I will say another thing about this. Kane in 2008, not a good year.
No, it was a stupid thing he was doing.
Because he won the ECW title, and that reign was nothing, because he never, we'd had the pay-per-views, and he wasn't always even defending it, or whatever. He had that, so that was a waste. And then they moved in the Raw, and now he's doing this. Then all of a sudden he turned heel out of nowhere, and then he would go on to have the feud of Rey Mysterio, which that was one of the stupidest feuds.
Absolutely, just ridiculous.
And then he's got that brown bag with him, and he keeps saying to himself, "Is he alive or is he dead? Is he alive or is he dead?" He's keeps saying it over and over again. And then eventually he reveals that he took out Rey Mysterio out for whatever reason. And, yeah.
Stupid.
So after the match... and it didn't end there either, because after the match, Punk held up the championship, and then Batista would hit him with the Batista bomb, and you just leave him lying there. And then Punk would just sit there and... I don't know. It's like, it was weird.
It was just so weird. It didn't make any sense. I guess they were trying to not... They just ended up making Punk look weak.
Well, they did that throughout this whole entire title reign.
Yeah.
Especially with the way it ends, which that's probably going to be a future show. So then, after that, the World Heavyweight Championship match, we'd have our 7th match of the night, which was the New York City parking lot brawl between John Bradshaw, Layfield, JBL, and John Cena.
This feud itself was bad. I just want to say in this match. So JBL tried to murder John Cena by setting him on fire in a car.
Well, God, they both did. Because they both did some crazy over the top stuff.
He sets the car on fire, and he goes to get a forklift. And what happens, Cameron? Who jumps out of the car and is perfectly fine standing up with his shirt off. I was like, that's Super Cena right there. That is.
Yeah, because another thing to keep in mind during this is there wasn't commentary till they got out to the ring, not the ringside area, but they got out to the arena area. One thing's for sure, had this been now, in this very moment, this for sure would have been a cinematic match. Oh,
for sure. No doubt. And Cena would have actually been set on fire. Look at the Braun Strowman did.
Yeah, he would have been on fire.
And he still would have won the match.
Oh,
he
yeah.
won the match and he got set on fire.
Exactly. Yeah, so to start this, JBL would arrive to the parking lot brawl in a limo, which I don't know who does that. And then Cena is nowhere to be found in the beginning, so then JBL would get kind of paranoid. And then JBL would crawl up on a car, and then all of a sudden John Cena would start up a car on the opposite side, and then he'd run it into him. All those JBL would get off in time.